Free plays and advice on all of this weekend's biggest college football matchups, including Texas A&M at LSU, Ole Miss at Oklahoma, Missouri at Vanderbilt, USF at Memphis, and Michigan at Michigan State. Welcome to the Blitz. We are live here on the Wage Talk YouTube channel. Those of you watching us live, we'll talk about any other game you're interested in as well. All you have to do is comment down below. Let us know what other game you are interested in. Of course, I am Bryan Power, joined as always by my good friends, Ralph Michaels and Ross Benjamin. Ralph, going to go to you first, as we will start with Saturday night's game in Death Valley. Number 20 LSU hosting unbeaten and third-ranked Texas A&M. LSU is a home dog here. They, of course, lost to Vandy last week at Vanderbilt. And it's interesting that LSU is a home dog because they are 19-1 straight up in home night games under head coach Brian Kelly. Say what you will about the head coach. He has traditionally gotten it done in this spot. So tell us how you are handicapping this big matchup in the SEC.
Well, let me also say this, Brian. A lot of teams can be 19-1 when the average line of you being a favorite was almost 3 touchdowns. I don't have that exact number in front of me, but
fair
again,
point.
They're a dog for a reason here. And you look at a team, you know, it used to be in the SEC, you lost to Mississippi and you lost to Vanderbilt. Your bubble is burst. You're out of the national championship headline. So some of the data I have for teams off a loss or a second loss, not quite as strong with the expanded playoffs, because they could easily, if they beat A&M and they're going to Bama and beat Alabama, go to Oklahoma, beat Oklahoma, they're going to be in the playoffs. They're not going to do that, though. So you're looking at basically a must-win game with a road game in Alabama on deck. But you look at Vanderbilt, and God bless the Commodores. You want to talk about coloring me impressed last week. You know, when LSU goes to Vanderbilt, gets held to 325 yards, 14 first downs, and they get outgained by 74 yards. Let's remember, against Mississippi, they got outgained by 226 yards. And then again, against Clemson on the road, again, a 93-yard edge, but they only had 354-yard edge. I like this A&M team. You know, it took me a long time to buy into them because year after year, we saw A&M start off great against a weak schedule and then fade against the SEC. But no such situation this year. Year-to-date schedules, both have played top 20 schedules. A&M, about 15 yards per game difference better than LSU. But going to Arkansas last week, A&M was outgained by 30 yards on the road. Going to Notre Dame, they gave up 429 yards. So I'm going to say this. You look at their 2 road games, the defense on the season at home allowing 268 yards against a much weaker schedule. Their 2 road games, they allowed 478 yards per game and 202 yards rushing, 5.7 yards per carry. The offense is top 20 compared to their opponents' averages. The defense also top 20. I actually like the over in this game. I would lean A&M. I believe the Aggies get it done. But again, a stronger opinion for me on over the total.
All right. Ross, how about you? It seems like a lot of people seem to be supporting the A&M side in the chat. Ralph talks about the over. I saw an A&M team total over vote in the chat. No Witt again. Yes, Weeks out. Of course, that's been noted. And then the Godfather, though, he likes LSU. He's kind of clinging on to that trend I shared. What do you think about this game here with LSU? Ralph made a salient point, I thought, talking about that. Hey, usually they're a big favorite in a lot of these night games. Here, they're a home dog. Are they a home dog for a reason, in your opinion?
They are a home dog for a reason, and you know, some of you people out there who comment on you like this pick because so-and-so's out, so-and-so's out, and so-and-so's out means nothing to me because, folks, it's all incorporated into the line, okay? So injuries, weather, it's all incorporated into the line. Having said all that, look, I was real high on LSU before the season started. As a matter of fact, they were my national championship pick in SEC winner pick when I did my show with Teddy Covers earlier this year. However, things have changed. First of all, I'm shocked by how they have underachieved offensively this season. They just you mentioned, Ralph, you bring up good points about Texas A&M, and they've been exposed on a couple occasions this year defensively. I just don't think LSU's offense has the ability at this point to take advantage of that. And when you compare offenses, Texas A&M hands down is the more dangerous team offensively. So I would have a lean toward Texas A&M. I'm not using this game. It's not going to be on my card. And again, my buddy Ralph brings up a good point with LSU. Yes, they're tremendous in Baton Rouge at night on a Saturday night, but look at the average line in those games, and here they're a dog. That should tell you something alone, Brian.
Yeah, RJ, who seems like he may have a rooting interest in this game based on his logo there. He does bring up a point about the home team seeming to win this game. I'll put a number behind that. 8 straight times the home team has won between LSU and Texas A&M. Guys, keep those questions rolling into the chat. We're going to do the show a little bit different this week. You see all your questions. I see the question about SMU and Wake, about USF and Memphis. USF and Memphis was already on our rundown. We're going to go through our 5 big games this week, and then we're going to get to the all your questions in the chat all at once a little bit later. So everybody is doing a great job firing off those comments. Stay tuned. We will get to your questions, but we're going to go through our rundown here first. And the SEC, we're going to stick in the SEC, guys, for Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Ralph, this is a game I talked about on the midweek edition of the Power 5, and I did so because Oklahoma taking early money, and I said I agreed with that line move. I agree with that line move. Of course, you are the master of the trends. Each and every week I try to shamelessly impress you with something that I found out on my own, and here we go with this one. This is going to be the 7th instance this season where we have a top 25 matchup and the lower-ranked team is favored. The previous 6, the lower-ranked team who has been favored has won and covered all 6 times. So that points to the Sooners as the right side here. What do you think?
Well, let's remember, it's because the Sooners lost to Texas and looked poorly doing it. But let's also remember, I want to bring up that, John Mateer's numbers do not look good. He looks much better than his stats do. 65% of 7-6 ratio. I think 4 of those picks came against Texas. But let's also remember the game before Texas, Kent State, was the game he was injured. So he had no practice time coming up to that Texas game, or less practice time than accustomed to, missed the game before. Last week against South Carolina, I wasn't really impressed with the offense either. They ended up winning 26-7. But if you're backing Oklahoma, you're backing them for one reason. They have maybe the 2nd best defense in college football behind the Buckeyes. You look, they've held 5 opponents to a season low. They held South Carolina last week to 86 yards under their average. In their last 5 games, they have allowed 7, 18, 7, 15, and 15 first downs. Yes, this Ole Miss offense is dynamic. We, of course, have Chambliss. Simmons has played well, too. You look at those guys on offense, and there's a reason they're averaging almost 500 yards per game and 27 yards per game. But I am concerned for Ole Miss. Back-to-back road games in the SEC are tough. Kiffin at Ole Miss, his last 8 back-to-back road games, he has covered 0 of those games. They went to Kentucky earlier this year. They only put up 30 points, winning by 7. They were minus 2 turnovers in that. But when I have an elite defense against a very good offense, against a team like Ole Miss that was brutalized defensively last week, Georgia rushed 49 times, 221 yards. Georgia put up 34 first downs and ran 80 plays. So now you're talking about an Ole Miss defense that was on the field for 80 plays at Georgia, now going on the road against Oklahoma. Oklahoma defense, edge over Ole Miss offense. And when I look at the Oklahoma offense against the Ole Miss defense, guess what? My edge goes to Oklahoma as well. The Sooners, again, that Texas game, a unique situation against a very good defense. But I do not trust the Rebels D on the road. The Rebels D has given up 526 and 29 first downs to Arkansas. They gave up 510 yards to Georgia. And when you have a defense that's capable to get exposed, and on the defensive side, Oklahoma is not going to give up big plays, which Ole Miss always wants. They do throw downfield. The quarterbacks are combining for almost 10 yards YPA. That will not happen against Oklahoma. Color me the Sooners this week. Rebels lose back-to-back games.
I'm with you there, Ralph, and I'm also with you in the fact that I think John Mateer, who, of course, probably came back too early for that Texas game, Ross, I think now 3 weeks back, in his third game back, I think he looks good against that Ole Miss defense that did wear down. Interestingly, Ross, we've got some disagreement in the chat here in terms of the total. Godfather says he leans under in this game. Phoenix Sundust, he likes the over. I will point out, every single college football team in America has gone under.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma's gone under in all their games.
Yes, and they are the only team that has yet to go over in a single game. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on the total or just want to talk about the side yourself.
No, I mean,
the first game in Oklahoma goes over.
Yeah, I think Ralph's got a camera in my office because, everything he said, I agree with 100% and are in my notes, albeit I have it in different forms. But I agree with everything Ralph just said. And I also agree with your opening statement on this game, Brian. The lower-ranked team against a higher-ranked team. This line jumped right out at me when it opened at 4. When you see a number 14 team in the country as a 4-point favorite to open, and now they're at 5.5, and a lot of that is sharp money. That's what I'm looking at, a reverse line movement here, which indicates sharp money, and certainly my money's on Oklahoma as well. And, Ralph mentioned this briefly, but I'm going to go back to it and say I think this Ole Miss team is going to be a bit mentally fragile going into this game. Let's think about this for a second. 2 weeks ago, as a 32.5-point favorite, they barely get by Washington State 24-21 at home. Okay, they were looking ahead to Georgia. Then last week, they have a 9-point lead, 35-26 going into the fourth quarter against Georgia, and they get outscored 17-0 in the fourth quarter to lose 43-35. Not only lose, but not cover as a 7-point underdog. So they're a little bit mentally fragile going into this game, in my estimation. And like Ralph said, they've been exposed defensively on a couple occasions this year, and also time of possession. Georgia had the ball for 37 minutes compared to 22 for Ole Miss last week. And same applied in the Washington State game. Washington State had a 5-minute time of possession edge, and you could see what that does. And it was exposed again last week, where the Ole Miss defense is on the field so much that they wear down against quality opposition in the fourth quarter. And boy, oh boy, Oklahoma's defense, number 1 in total defense, number 1 scoring defense, number 1 pass defense at 108 yards. Now, I'm not going to say that they're going to hold Ole Miss to those types of numbers, but I will go out on a limb and say Ole Miss will be well below their average in total yards and points scored in this game and passing yards. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma here, minus 5.5 against Ole Miss. And for all the reasons I just said, and for all the reasons my buddy Ralph said. Again, I think Ralph's got a spy in my office here.
Well, this is a Boomer Sooner podcast here, or show, if you will. It appears, as we have a consensus on this one, Oklahoma, that game, noon Eastern. By the way. All right, what do we say we stay in the SEC, where a lot of these big games tend to take place? And Missouri and Vanderbilt, Ralph. Vanderbilt, last week, we talked about it on the show. First time in over 50 games, they were favored in SEC play. It was the first time since the 1970s they were favored over a ranked SEC opponent. It was the first time since the 1940s they were favored over LSU. But guess what? Vanderbilt had such a fun time winning and covering that game that they are favored again now in back-to-back SEC games against back-to-back ranked opponents. Who would have thought this would be a top 15 matchup coming here? Mizzou at Vandy. Can Vanderbilt, Diego Pavia, do it again here and continue to outperform the odds makers' expectations?
Well, the defenses keep getting tougher and tougher. And, congrats to Vandy winning that game. I actually lean, I did not think they would look as good as they did. But what really impressed me the most was the turnovers were even. They rushed for 239, 5.3 against LSU. LSU rushes for 100 yards, 4.8. When you can win both on the offensive line and defensive line, that impresses me. The second most impressive thing is the O-line for Vanderbilt. We know Pavia is mobile. Hell, he's the leading rusher for Vanderbilt, 438 yards, 5.7. That's part of the reason Vanderbilt only has 9 sacks allowed on the season. The D only has 20, so they don't get a lot of pressure here. But now, God bless them. I just cannot back them. Their stat profile is actually a little better than Missouri's. We talked about Missouri the last couple weeks, and I said to Missouri against Alabama, I liked them, but I couldn't bet them because of the strength of schedule difference. Their schedule was like 150th at that point. Well, they lose to Alabama by 3 and they cover. Then they go to Auburn. I say I like them, but I can't use them because of strength of schedule differential. Well, now it's down to 68 to 47. Missouri has played the 68th toughest schedule. Vanderbilt's played the 47th. So Vanderbilt is 19 spots higher, and they're actually yards per game diff. They're almost exactly even. So edge to Vanderbilt. But what does concern me is Missouri is an up-tempo team. Missouri is number 4, running 77 plays per game. After coming off Bama, the defense played 69 plays. They only played 49 because they shut down LSU. I'm worried about Vanderbilt's depth in defense being able to withstand the pace that Missouri is going to show. Missouri ran 84 plays last week against Auburn on the road. Again, remember, though, last week was Missouri's first road game. So now not only is this their second road game, think about how much less time they have going to Auburn, traveling back, practicing, and having to go to Nashville. Vanderbilt also has ESPN in front of them. And if you're in Georgia or Ohio State, ESPN Game Day doesn't mean shit to you. If you're a Vanderbilt Commodore or a Commodore fan and you have Game Day there, it is going to be wild and crazy that first half. I'm going to stay away from the game because I have not been on Missouri. I have not been on Vanderbilt, but I am going to look for a live betting situation. Vanderbilt will be excited early. If they get hit if they get punched in the teeth and Missouri controls the tempo, we could see a quick deflation. If they get out to an early lead and Missouri starts fighting back, I may be looking to back the Missouri Tigers in a live betting situation, especially if they give up a cheap touchdown early. And I do want to mention, for those of you watching Game Day tomorrow, they are not the exact same colors. Vanderbilt is black and gold. Missouri is old gold and black. 2 completely different golds, although you can't really tell.
Can of old gold always laying on the side of the road, Ross. You can still find those in your favorite neighborhoods. Anyway, so I hope you heard that, Pat McAfee. Ohio State, Georgia, they don't give a shit about you, quite frankly. That is for Ralph Michaels. I will say this, something that I care about, Ross, and yes, I am speaking here as a jilted Auburn bettor from last week. Missouri was very lucky, I thought, to win that game in double overtime. Auburn, because they have apparently angered the college football gods and will never, ever have something go right in a high leverage situation again until maybe they fire Hugh Freeze. They missed 3 field goals in that game. So Missouri, they go on the road. Ralph mentioned for the first time they win. Why? Because the other team missed 3 field goals in a double overtime game. Well, both teams missed field goals in the first overtime. So what do you think? This is a tough game to call, I think, Missouri and Vanderbilt. Yeah. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's not a game I'm going to use. Talk about wild and crazy. Ralph, you're comparing the colors now. We're getting down to that in analysis. Wild and crazy fits you, my friend, but I love you, man. Anyway, to me, I think Missouri's a tad better on both sides of the ball. The one thing that really sticks out to me, Ralph mentioned the fact that Missouri runs 77 plays per game and plays up tempo. Their defensive numbers are pretty good for a team that runs that fast a tempo offensively. I mean, we mentioned it with Ole Miss, and if you're not converting running fast tempo, you're putting your defense in a dilemma because they're on the field a lot. So that part of it impresses me for Missouri. Really tough call. There's a lot better value on the board in my estimation, guys.
All right. Shout out to Titans, RJ, Adam, Cody, everybody, Have watching in the chat. Again, we're going to go through our rundown here. We've already gone through 3 games. We've got 2 more in our rundown to get to. And then we will be focusing on all of your questions on the chat. Keep those coming. Stay tuned. We'll answer you. But now we're going to take a break to tell you guys what we all have going on this weekend at wagertalk.com. Ralph, we have a joint promo, the 3 of us here for the Blitz. You, Ross, and myself. Why don't you tell the people about that?
Well, guys, as a thank you for watching this show, this is a show-only special for the 3 of us. A 30-day all-access pass, normally $2.99. Well, for the last 4 weeks, you've heard Brian, Ross, and me both talk. What a great deal the Weekend Warriors getting Saturday college football and Sunday NFL. But basically, for the price of 4 Weekend Warriors, you're also getting any midweek college football, any midweek NFL, plus NHL, NBA, and college basketball starts in what, 13 days, 14 days? So you're talking all access, 30 days, not $2.99, but only $199 for the 3 of us. By the way, let me figure out some math. That is under $7 a day. So the coupon code, under 7, UNDER, the number 7. In college football, I have won 10 straight college football games.
Woo!
My college footballs run 37-15. College football best bets, 4% and 5%, 25-9, 74%. College football 5%, 9-2, 80%. I already have 3 college football plays loaded, including that 5% play. Hopefully the streak goes to 13-0. Sign up today. You'll get those plays immediately. I want you to play them today. The code again, under 7, UNDER, the number 7, no spaces.
All right. Speaking of people who know a thing or two about winning in college football, we have Ralph. Absolutely have 10 in a row, folks.
Awesome.
And then not to be outdone, the individual to my left there on the screen, Ross Benjamin, you know a thing or two about winning at college football. Why don't you sweeten the pot, make the people want to take advantage of this special offer even more by telling them what you've got going on?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I do know a lot about college football, and I have won consistently, especially over the last 3 seasons. But Ralph, congratulations. That's a great run, my friend. And the reason why you're right up there in the standings in college football each and every year. Look, here's the thing with me. $49 weekend special. You get Saturday college football, Sunday NFL, and Monday NFL, if I'm not mistaken. And 5% best bets as well are included if we put them out. And a lot of you have been buying this for me, and I really appreciate it. And to me, I don't know why you would stop. And I'm glad for you because since September 11th, my NFL and college football, a combined 31-15. NFL since week 3, 12-5. College football, 21-11 this year, 66%, up 31 units. Number 2, not number 1. Last year was number 1 in units earned and number 1 in win percentage. And talk about long-term streaks, college football, 147-96 since September 9th of 2023. That's over 2 years, folks. That's 61% winners and a net profit of 112 units. So a lot to like about the special that Ralph just mentioned. Also, NBA started the year 2-0 on a 16-5 run in the NBA dating back to last year. So a lot of good stuff going on. And take advantage of that $49 Weekend Warrior special, folks. Take advantage of $199 for the next 30 days in all sports. That's an absolute steal from handicappers like me, Ralph, and Brian, the caliber handicappers we are. So a lot of great stuff going on at wagertalk.com. You can find me at my personal link there, wt.buzz/RB.
All right. There you go. That's just the kind of guys you are listening to here on the show. Let's get back to the rundown. I saw a question about USF and Memphis. Here you see it on the screen. Look ahead line for this game, Ross, was Memphis -3, or maybe even -3.5 it was. I don't have my piece of paper. I wrote it down. But Memphis last week, and I talked about this game on the weekend edition of the Power 5. Memphis was coming off a bye, going to a UAB team that had just, thankfully, we don't root for anyone to lose their job, but maybe we do in case of Trent Dilfer. Trent Dilfer was fired, and I said UAB was going to play better. Well, even with a backup quarterback, this kid that didn't play for the Blazers, UAB shocks Memphis, won outright as a 3-touchdown home underdog. So, and Memphis has major injury concerns, including a quarterback. So we've seen a massive flip here in this game. Memphis, now a 5-point home dog at the Liberty Bowl, where they tend to be very good. I've got the number because I talked about this on the midweek edition of the Power 5 here, which you can watch elsewhere on the Wage Talk YouTube channel. Memphis 31-6 straight up their last 37 home games, 10-3 ATS their last 13 as a home dog. I know there are injury concerns, but this number's tempting to me on Memphis to take the points.
Yeah, beware of the wounded animal is what I say in this one. And Memphis was clearly looking ahead, no excuse to lose at UAB with all the turmoil that program had gone through leading up to that game, firing their head coach, Trent Dilfer, which in my estimation was justified. And like Brian, I don't want to see anybody lose their job, but, it came to that point. And not only did Memphis lose that game, they lost it as a 24-point favorite, better than 3-touchdown favorite. They were clearly looking ahead to South Florida. Again, that's not an excuse. But look, here's the thing. Even with that loss, they still have their own destiny in their hands if they win this game on Saturday. And why I say that is because 2 of their last 4 games are against Navy and Tulane, who are combined 7-0 in American play. And also South Florida being undefeated in conference play. So a win over South Florida would go a long way in keeping their hopes alive for a American Conference Championship game and possibly a conference title. Memphis, by the way, 3-0 straight up in ATS at home this year, and that includes an upset win against Arkansas as a 7.5-point dog. You mentioned Memphis's home record, Brian, and I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to be a little more specific. Since 2017, Memphis is 40-7 straight up at home when facing FBS opponents. They have 8 other wins that came against FCS opponents. I don't bother to bring that up.
Sure.
Against FCS opponents, 40-7 straight up. Okay, and straight up, let's not forget, we're talking about a home underdog here with a very strong home field. And that includes, since last year, they've won 8 in a row at home. During that same time frame, since 2017, they were a home underdog 10 times. They covered 8 of those contests, and they won 6 of them straight up. And none of those lines were greater than 9.5. So at 9.5 or less at home, they have a terrific cover rate since 2017. And that speaks volumes to me, too, when I say 9.5 or less, because we see a lot of teams that are plus 17 and lose a game by 14. That's not the case with Memphis. South Florida has played a tougher schedule. There's no 2 ways about it. I mean, all you have to do is look at their first 3 games: Boise, Florida, and Miami. Now, I don't mean to make light of the wins against Boise and Florida, but Boise's not the same Boise team. They're still good, but they're not great. They're not the quality of Boise team. Even going back to last year, the team that went to the college football playoff. Florida, and that win looks a little less impressive now than it did then. as an 18-point underdog. And against Miami, they were just not competitive. I'm not going to go out on a limb and call for a Memphis upset here, but I'm going to take the points here with the Memphis Tigers plus the 5. I look for them to rebound, come out emotionally, have that strong home field advantage, and keep this game competitive throughout. And again, I wouldn't be shocked to see the upset, but I'm not going to get greedy. I'll take the plus 5 here, Brian.
All right. RJ makes a point. USF can score. I think we would all agree that is true. Ralph, I'm with Ross. I said it on the midweek edition of Power 5. I disagree with the way this line is moving. I think the value is clearly with the home dog. What about you?
Well, I'm going to disagree with both of you. So we're going to have a battle.
Okay.
Really, Ross, you talked about strength of schedule. Let me quantify that. USF has played the number 64 schedule. Again, you look at their last 4 games, the sister of the poor. But Memphis, again, 64 for USF. Memphis has played the 130th toughest schedule. There's 136 teams in the FBS, guys, number 130. Yet, USF is better in yards per game diff. They're number 26 at plus 1.6 yards per play. Memphis is number 35 at 1.34 yards per play. How do teams get affected after losing as a big favorite? I went to the database while Ross was talking. Since 2012, teams off a loss as a favorite of 20 or more and now at home, 14 and 33, 30% against the spread. They do not rebound well. And then USF's defensive numbers are far worse than Memphis. But when you look compared to who their averages say, the actual numbers in the NCAA has USF with the number 82 defense and Memphis with the 40. That seems like a very big difference. But with the strength of schedule, and when you look at the averages, it's much closer on defense. USF number 49 instead of number 80. And I'm pulling up the other team. Memphis is number 36, so much closer. I do like the USF offense. The USF defense can get enough done. Remember, they've only allowed North Texas to go over 400 and Miami of Florida to go over 500 yards. I'm totally okay with those numbers because you look at Memphis defense, they go to Georgia State, they allowed 389. Against Arkansas, they allowed 500. They go to FAU, they allowed 397. And against UAB, they allowed 470 yards. There was nothing fluky about that 7-point loss. They got outgained by 108 yards, and they were actually plus a turnover last week. I am buying into the Bulls. I am on the Bulls. So, battle head-to-head against you two. We'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, look, if we agreed on every game, that wouldn't be any fun on the show, would it, Rob?
That would
Let
be
me ask you a question, Ralph.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you a question. What was the you said 14 and 33 for a team that's coming off a loss of minus 21 or more?
It is minus 20 or more, and they're at
Right.
home since 2012. 14 ATS wins, 33 ATS losses, and 1 push. 29.8% against the spread.
So the home teams did cover 14 times, right?
Correct.
It's not 100%, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Ross,
Okay.
don't even go there. Come on.
Oh.
Anyway, Brian, the question you got from the viewer he said something about it's 4. I'm not sure what you said prior to the last question from the viewer.
No, he said USF can score, is what he said.
Okay.
USF can score, which I think we would all agree on. Yes, USF can score. Yes.
No, Ralph, I'm teasing you, man, because we think alike when it comes to those betting angles.
Ross, if you need one of these things for your ears to know the difference between 4 and score, I'm just letting you know.
Yeah. At least I can leave my mic on.
Or score.
He was there live.
At least I leave my mic on
ago.
throughout the show.
Oh boy. All right. 4 score. All right. And we'll be calling Abe Lincoln in next week. Okay. We have one more game in our rundown to talk about here, and that is Michigan. How appropriately tired I am. Michigan and Michigan State. This was a rivalry that Michigan owned for many years when I was growing up, and then I graduated from college, and Michigan State dominated when Michigan was in the tank, and then Michigan, though, the last 3 years has dominated. I've seen a lot of people kind of cite this as a flat spot there, Ralph, for Michigan. Now, obviously, they had a big win against Washington last week. They needed that to keep their playoff hopes alive. Michigan State, I'll tell you what, if they're down by 17 and they just want to kick a field goal, I think they proved last week that they're willing to just kick a field goal at the end for the cover. I know that there were a lot of people. I was talking to Prez earlier in the week. He was pulling his hair out over what Michigan State did to Indiana to get into the back door in that game. Oh, what's your take on this one? Because it would be home dog or pass for me. Obviously, I don't want to lay north of 2 touchdowns in a rivalry, but I think we would all agree Michigan's the better team here.
I'm with you, and I can't agree that it's a flat spot for Michigan. You're playing your in-state rival, and you only have Purdue, Northwestern, and Maryland on deck. So you're not you're not looking past Michigan State, especially on the road.
Good point.
I'm with you, Brian. In this kind of situation, getting 14.5 points in a game where there's going to be a lot of rushes. Michigan right now averaging 37 rushes per game, and they're averaging only about 20 passes, so it's a 2-1. I would lean under. I'm not going to give much info on the game because I don't want to back Michigan State, but I'm not going to lay 2 touchdowns with Michigan on the road with a team that, let's see, their high point total this year against a Big Ten team is 30 points. And in conference action, they're averaging 18 first downs and 23 points. You cannot lay over 2 touchdowns with a team averaging 23 points per game in conference play.
No, you can't. And there are some injury concerns as well here for Michigan State, Ross. So I don't know. Do you have a stronger take than Ralph or I on this matchup?
No, I believe what both of you guys said, I agree with 100%. Look, I'm not willing to lay 14.5 with an unranked team on the road in a rivalry game, and I'm certainly not willing to trust Michigan State after how they've looked, regardless of them kicking a field goal. They get inside the number in their last game. This is a game, again, I would highly advise stay away from, folks. There's a lot better value on the board than this one here.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Ross, because, of course, at the end of the show, if you're new here to the Blitz, first of all, smash that like button. We appreciate the support. In addition to all you guys commenting down below, make sure you click that subscribe button as well. That's how you'll be instantly alerted when we go live each and every Thursday at 1 p.m. when you do that. But Ross makes a great point. There are better games to bet on. Well, guess what, guys? At the end of the show, we do this every week. All 3 of us will be giving you a best bet to take home. So stay tuned for that. We will be getting to that. But first, it is time for your questions. You guys have been patient enough here. Dan, I don't know if you want to throw a question up there or if I should just pick something myself. Oh, thank you, Dan. Adam wants to know SMU and Wake. This line keeps dropping. Now some 2.5s out there. Thoughts? Guys, I'll say this. I don't know. I've not seen bet on it yet, but this game has all the makings of something that would be in Marco's Deli. It is a sandwich spot for sure. SMU coming off the big upset win over Clemson. I don't know how much you can call it. Obviously, Clemson didn't have Klubnik. We talked about that last week. And then SMU will be playing Miami next week. Meanwhile, Wake Forest is off a bye. And Wake Forest, tip your cap to them, Ross, because Wake Forest has played way better than any of us would imagine. I think a lot of people thought this was one of the worst Power 4 teams in the country coming into the season. But they've been cashing tickets, and they're taking money here.
Yeah, myself included. That's what I thought to begin the year. This is one of those perception versus reality games. And when I say that is SMU is perceived as the better program, the better team, coming off a win at Clemson. Yet here they are, just a 2.5-point favorite against lowly Wake Forest. But like you said, Wake Forest has been playing competitive throughout. I mean, they nearly knocked off Georgia Tech a few weeks back. They were very unlucky to lose that game. And SMU, sandwich game, like Ralph said, not the same caliber of team that went to the playoffs last year. And I think that this is a dangerous spot for SMU. I'm not going to use this game, but I would have a small lean toward Wake because this looks like an awful fishy line, Ralph.
Yeah, I agree. You look at the numbers, the year-to-date numbers. Schedules, SMU's played a little tougher, 62-76. But in yards per play diff, and I mentioned that because that is my number one go-to stat. SMU has played 14 spots better. Pretty close. Listen to this yards per game diff. Wake Forest is number 9 in the country, plus 2.13 yards per play. SMU is number 45. No one talks about this Wake Forest defense. They have held 5 teams to a season low or a season number 2 low. They did allow 406 yards to NC State and 411 yards to Georgia Tech. But those are not bad performances. Those are middle-of-the-road performances. They have shut down the D with 3.6 yards per carry. Now, of course, yards per carry doesn't mean that much normally with an SMU team, but this SMU team basically has passed and rushed for the same time. Rhett Lashey's not throwing the ball nearly as much as he has in the past few years. Wake Forest defense gets it done. I think it's going to be a lower than expected score, and I do back the Demon Deacons.
Okay, so there you go. It's a bit of a fishy line, and we're all, I guess, casting our reel there with Wake Forest. All right, let's get oops, I'm sorry about that, Dan. Here, let me hide that. Dan, I apologize that I tried taking control for a minute. I jumped the gun. Can we get an Arkansas-Auburn breakdown? Here's my breakdown. This is how this game is going to end. Okay, it's going to get the third overtime. The teams are going to have to trade 2-point tries, and both teams will then spontaneously combust. Because that's the only way that these two teams can end. These are the unluckiest teams in America, Ross Benjamin, and you can't convince me there's an unluckier team than these two. Arkansas, all they do, and for that matter, all Auburn, they just lose close. Every game, they just find new ways. I was on Arkansas. We got in through the back door. Thankfully against A&M last week with that late touchdown. Auburn, I wasn't so lucky on. They had a shorter number at home. So I don't know how you can – I don't know how you – and of course the line, it's a pick'em game. This is a very tough matchup for me.
Auburn has perfected the art of finding ways to lose. Arkansas is a close second. The only difference I see is the one game that sticks out to me is Arkansas getting blown out at home against Notre Dame. Auburn's a very difficult team to blow out because their defense is pretty damn good. As a matter of fact, much better than Arkansas. In a matchup such as this, that might be the difference, but I'm not willing to go out on a limb on either one of these teams, Ralph.
I agree with you. You know, Brian, we talked about UNLV a few weeks ago. Arkansas is the SEC UNLV. Listen to these numbers. These are national rankings. Yards per game, number 4. Yards per play, number 5. Defensive yards per play, number 126. Defensive yards per game, number 126. So you want to talk about a team. I guess that's the reason their last 4 games have scored 87, 65, 79, 64, and 69. There's also a reason this total is so high. The teams have played the number 2 and 4 toughest schedules in the country. But what really shocks me, you think Arkansas runs the ball and they don't get explosive plays? This year in college football, they have had 141 plays of 10 yards or more. That is number 1 in the NCAA. They've had 54 plays of 20 yards or more. That is number 1 in the NCAA. So no action for me, but basically when you're breaking down this game is, who do you rate higher? The Arkansas offense versus the Auburn defense, which are both in the upper echelon, or the Arkansas defense against a horrible Alabama Auburn offense? Pass for me. If I had to lean, I would lean with the home team with the tougher schedule and the much better yard per game, yard per play, and point per game diff.
Yeah, and I see in our chat a lot of people have shouted out Arkansas quarterback Taylor Green. They have a big edge at that position here. Arkansas's taking a little money. If you force me to take a side of this one, it would be the Hogs. Of course, they've already made the coaching change, going to the erstwhile Bobby Petrino, stay off the motorcycle Bobby, and Hugh Freeze. Meanwhile, I don't know how long he is for that job at Auburn. All right.
You know what, Brian? By the way, with that Arkansas cover last week, interim head coaches are now 5-0 this year. So we'll see what happens out west, right, with Colorado State taking over. So not that I'm going to bet that situation at all. I still look to fade them. I actually like Wyoming in that game, but I just thought I'd mention it just so people have something to
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. Last week, as a matter of fact, you talk about it was a very unique situation because Penn State had the interim. Penn State was the last team in the country that had not covered a point spread. Well, what do they do after firing James Franklin? They cover for the first time. And then UAB, playing under the interim Mortensen, they were facing a Memphis team that was one of two that had covered every game. And guess what? UAB covered that spread. So the interim coach bump, we call it the new manager bounce in soccer for those keeping score at home. It is real, apparently, in college football. And yes, there is one instance of this.
There's no soccer talk on this show.
Come on. Come on. We had a nice winner on Middlesbrough yesterday. All right. Big fan of the channel. Before I run everybody off, a prediction on the side in the Pittsburgh game. I'd appreciate Pittsburgh playing NC State. I don't know if anyone has a take on this one. I kind of lean towards the dog in this one. Of course, that's my natural reaction to most of these things, but that's what I would do here.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. I think this line jumped out at me when I saw Pittsburgh is a single-digit favorite, which surprised me a little bit because Pittsburgh, in my estimation, they were getting a lot of acclaim before the season started, and they're starting to play like that team that deserved that acclaim. And NC State, sort of an erratic ball club, but this is a low number, I think, Ralph, with all things being considered. And that scares me away from going toward what I think is the better team in Pittsburgh. I must be missing something because this line to me is, like I said in the last game, very fishy.
Well, let's see. Panther fans. Eli Holston, you beat Duquesne, you beat Central Michigan. Oh, you lose to West Virginia. He gets hurt against Louisville. Oh, my God, the season's over. We have to go to the freshman, right? Heinschel. What happens? 503 yards against Boston College, 476 yards at Florida State. Last week against Syracuse, they were slowed. He was only 13 of 24 because he was sacked 7 times. Syracuse D-line was amazing. The problem is this. NC State has not had more than, they have 11 sacks on the season, and on the road, they've had 1 sack, 3 sacks, and 2 sacks. I actually do lean the under in this game. I think Pittsburgh, with the freshman, has run the ball 42, 42, and 43 times the last 3 games. The NC State defense, pretty solid rush defense, allowing 144.5 on the season. Under for me. Sorry, I know he said he wanted a side, but I can't get to a side that I can feel comfortable sharing with you here on the show.
Well, my guy Jay Buff is in. He said he bet the Wolfpack, by the way. So there you go. There's somebody who's taking a side. I'm kind of with him there. I know that Pitt, it may be a sell high situation. All right, guys, we have time for 2 more questions before we get to the best bets. Titan CT wants to know any thoughts on Iowa, Minnesota. Look, anytime. I know a good friend of mine is going to be at this game, and he's an Iowa fan. And I know Minnesota looked great against Nebraska last month. I mean, they really, they didn't just win. They dominated, Ross. And I'll tell you what, I look at a low total like that, a game with a low total like this, and you're going to give me 8-9 points. Again, it's my natural default. People know this, but I would lean towards the dog here.
Yeah, and I'm one of those contrarian guys. And when I saw this line, I term it as a heavy line. And when I say that, it's why is this team favored by more than a touchdown in this game after what we saw with Minnesota last week? And for that reason alone, I would, if I use this game, I would use the home favorite here. That's just the way I think. It's a little bit of backwards logic. But, again, folks, if you think like an odds maker, you're going to be right more times than you're not, okay? And think like an odds maker here. Why is it? And not only it opens at 7.5, it's gone to 9. It's why is Iowa catching early money after the way Minnesota looked last week against Nebraska, Ralph?
That's very well taken.
Well, Minnesota looked good last week, because they were facing a rush D in Penn State that just wasn't interested in playing. You got to remember, Kamari Moulton for Minnesota got hurt in the opener. He missed a couple games, came back a little early against Rutgers. They did win that game. Then they lose to Ohio State, and they beat Purdue and Nebraska. Well, the last 2 weeks with Moulton, 15 carries for 96 yards, 17 carries for 99 yards. What does that do? That opens up the quarterback, Gronkowski, who is a very mobile quarterback. He is number 2 on the team in rushing. He had 9 carries for 130 yards. I think the Iowa rush defense that we're so accustomed to under Ferentz being good, you look at the last couple weeks, they allowed Wisconsin 127. They allowed Penn State 173. Minnesota will be able to run the ball. What I do like in this game is I actually like Minnesota first half because the Minnesota defense played well against Nebraska, but they got exposed the previous 2 weeks. Granted, that was Ohio State and Purdue, but I actually think Minnesota can keep it close. I like Minnesota first half plus the points.
Okay, a little first half bet. I think that's the first one. Ralph's been sneaking those first half bets in each and every week. That was the first one this week. A little Mid-American Conference. We couldn't go a full hour without working the Mid-American Conference. And BP, tell me I'm on the right side with Miami of Ohio -1.5. Look, Chuck Martin, as he always does, prioritizing the conference games over the non-conference games. Yeah, maybe. I like the under in that game, Jacob. I'll be honest. If I had to take anything, I wouldn't take a side. I would take the under. I think points will be at a premium there in Miami and Western Michigan. The MAC wide open this year. All right. Time to get to our best bets here. Ross, I'm going to go to you first here because you, in our Slack channel, you were the first to contribute your best bet, so you'll be the first to go here. And you are also talking about a marquee matchup here with Alabama and South Carolina. I hope I don't spoil what you're about to say for everyone, but I agree with you here, and I think then people know which side you're taking.
Well, I'm either going to look like an absolute genius or an absolute moron with this pick. Here's the thing I'm looking at, all right? Alabama, 3 games on the road this year against pretty good competition, by the way, in Florida State, Georgia, and Missouri. Well, I guess Florida State, now that you look at it, wasn't real good competition. And they lost that game. And the other 2 that they won at Georgia and at Missouri, they won by 3. Okay? Alabama's played a gauntlet when it comes to schedule. In their last 4 games, number 5, Georgia, number 10, Vandy, number 17, Tennessee, number 15, Missouri. Now they play a South Carolina team that's vastly underachieved this year, 1-4 in SEC play. And next week, they got LSU. The week after, they got Oklahoma. So I guess Marco calls these sandwich games, and this certainly fits that bill. I just think, look, there's no reason why, when you look at this game on paper, that South Carolina has any chance not only to win the game, but to stay competitive. I mean, their offense has struggled. Their offensive line is terrible. But again, I'm going to use that, go against the grain outlook here. And I am going to take South Carolina here. You can get a 12.5. There's a couple 12.5s out there, folks. A couple places have come down to 11.5. And I deem that to be sharp money because I don't think a lot of people early on, public betting wasn't lining up to take South Carolina plus the points against an Alabama team that's beaten some pretty good opponents in recent weeks and looked pretty good in doing so. So I'm going to go out on a limb. Okay, South Carolina plus 12.5 against Alabama. Call me crazy, but we'll see. We'll talk next week, and we'll see how crazy I am.
Well, Ross, you have 2 supporters, not just me, but Jacob Hefner, also on the Gamecocks there. So there you go. You got 2 supporters, if that makes you feel any better. Ralph will be taking you to the SEC as well. Before we get to him, let's dip down to the Sun Belt, shall we? I'm going to give you a best bet in the Sun Belt now. It was several weeks ago on this very program, you heard Ralph Michaels give out a best bet on Troy. They were getting 5 at Buffalo at the time. Troy was really at its low point. They were turning to a backup quarterback. Well, Ralph was correct in taking Troy that week as a 5-point dog. They went to Buffalo and won outright. What did Troy do the next week? They hosted South Alabama. They were a short home dog. They won that game outright. What did Troy do the following week? They went to Texas State as a 7.5-point dog. Won outright, 48-41. And then last week, Troy found itself in the favorite role for the first time, and they did win big, 37-14 against the UL Monroe team that it turns out, well, just isn't very good. But you peek open the box score, bust open the hood, if you will. Troy was plus 4 turnovers in that game. And now Troy is laying more than a touchdown at home against the Louisiana side that I think is more than capable. Louisiana coming off back-to-back losses, but those were two good teams in the Sun Belt, JMU, James Madison, and Southern Miss. I think Louisiana is live here. Give me the Ragin' Cajuns plus the 9.5. Maybe even sprinkle a little bit on the money line, but that is my contribution to our best bet segment here. Ragin' Cajuns. Ralph, take us back to the SEC.
Brian, I looked at my opening power ratings while you were talking about that game. Mm-hmm. I would have had ULL a 7-point favorite.
Well, there you go. That is what we call value, I believe.
You know, no question. And I'm gonna go a scheduling situation game of the week. And I am going to be backing Mississippi State against Texas. You can say, oh, Texas beat Oklahoma and then went on the road and beat Kentucky last week. And you look at Mississippi State and you say, oh, my God, they lost 3 straight games. They got blown out at AM 31-9. But let's look at the situations that led to these current results. Mississippi State played their first 6 games without a bye. They wore out against Texas A&M. Remember, they hosted Tennessee the week before. They were on the field for 75 plays, I think, at home against Tennessee. Then they had to go to Texas A&M. Texas A&M ran the ball 80 plays, and they just got mauled over, allowing 299 yards rushing. So what happens? They have a bye week. They then have to travel to Florida last week, and even though they lost that game by 2, they ended up having a 468 to 452 yard edge. Turnovers were even. On the flip side, how many college football teams have played 4 straight games away from home? Well, that's the Texas Longhorns without a bye. They had a bye before the Florida game. So they go to Florida. They play Oklahoma in Dallas. They go to Kentucky, and now they're playing their 4th straight road game. Too tough of a situation for that non-existent offense. This game to me should be Texas 3. The only reason it's 7 is because Texas finds a way to win, and Arch Manning is their quarterback. But Arch Manning, again, 60% completions with a 7.7 YPA, yards per attempt. Mississippi State can win this game outright.
Ralph wants the cowbell. Give me some cowbell is what he's yelling there.
You know, Brian, I would argue that Texas had a bye last week because they didn't show up at Kentucky. They were very fortunate. Ralph, you're a numbers guy when it comes to yardage. They were thoroughly outplayed in that game. They made Kentucky look like the second coming of Ole Miss on offense.
26-8 first downs.
Yeah. I mean,
that is Texas. I can't remember how big of a favorite was Texas on the road last week.
13.
13. Okay. I knew it was 10 plus 10. So you're on the road as a 13-point favorite, and you get out first down 26-8.
Yeah. And Brian, have you ever seen a more overrated, overhyped quarterback than Arch Manning? I mean, I watched him last week. How many easy throws did he miss last week, Ralph? You know?
No question. 12 to 27, sacked 3 times. It doesn't help that you can only run the ball 47 yards for 1.7 yards per carry. Yeah. He can't handle that kind of pressure. Now,
but he missed a lot of open receivers, though, Ralph. That's what bothers me. Not the 12 for 27, but there was at least 5 throws that were very makeable that would have moved the chains that he just was completely inaccurate on. So, you know, for a guy who gets so much hype, he's the next, coming of the Mannings. I would argue this kid is not nowhere near. I can't see how he's going to be an NFL quarterback the way he looks at this juncture. I know he's still young, Brian, but the jury's still out.
No, I mean, I said it in August when I was actually announced that this show would be a thing on Wage Talk Today with Andy Lang. And I talked about how I thought I named you 2 overrated teams, Texas and Penn State. That was, in retrospect, a pretty good call. Yeah. Texas, I said with Arch Manning, if this guy was the second coming, it's not like they were loving Quinn Ewers in Austin last year. Why was Arch not getting a look? That was always a very telling thing to me. And we're seeing this year why that Arch, they didn't turn Arch last year. All right. There you see it right there. The Blitz squad ride, Ross Benjamin. We're all taking the points this week. South Carolina plus 12.5 against Alabama. DeBoer struggles as a double-digit road favorite, guys. Ralph, he likes Mississippi State plus 7.5 against Texas. Texas doesn't score much, guys. And then I am going with the Louisiana Raging Cajuns plus 9.5. I think Troy a little overvalued finally this week. Final price plus 608 if you want to roll them all together. Ralph, I'm going to give you the last word here on the show. I want you to let everyone know, remind everyone about that great promotion we talked about earlier in the program. Talk about a squad ride. You can get all 3 of our college football plays for the next 30 days. How?
Again, guys, if you just want football and you don't want to make the long-term commitment, the Weekend Warrior is still active. Saturday college football, Sunday NFL, and Monday NFL if anyone has a play. But again, for the same price per week, why not get every sport from any of us? Take your choice, buy 2, buy 3. The code UNDER7, UNDER, no space, the number 7. Every college football play, NFL play, NBA, NHL, Brian's soccer, and any other sports we do. Again, it's a great value. And again, this is a special only to our viewers as a thank you for tuning in. Hit that like button. We certainly appreciate you taking time out of your busy Thursday to watch us here on the Blitz.
Absolutely. And that is another edition of the Blitz in the books. Yes, like Ralph said, please smash that like button. Click subscribe if you already haven't done. We will be back here, of course, live next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, immediately following Andy Lang on Wager Talk Today. For Ralph, for Ross, I am Bryan Power. And until next time, let's cash some tickets.